Hey, my name's John, and I hope you're doing well today. And as the year quickly comes to an end and the holidays start to roll on, I found myself reflecting on my late 20s. It was kind of strange at first, and honestly, even now, after realizing just how quickly the time has passed. It's funny though, I still remember my first days of uni so clearly, and it's hard to believe that this was nearly a decade ago. Back then, everything felt so new and exciting. I didn't know what the next 10 years were going to be like, much less the next two. And now, as I'm looking back on all these years, I see just how much has changed, and how the decisions I made back then have really affected me, and how much I've grown into the person I am today. I feel so old typing this, but time has really flashed on by, and with so much happening, I was wondering how I ended up where I am now. They do say that life can snowball, and really fast too. With each decision we make, we build from the past. So, how did I get here? It's a question that's been on my mind a lot lately, but I come back to thinking that the past is the present is now, and the future is what really matters. Like everyone else, I have goals and a envisioned lifestyle for what I at least think will lead me to be happy in my 30s and well beyond that. The only question is, how do I get there? Let's take a step back and think about the different periods of life we all go through, and in particular our 20s. It could be because I'm already in my late 20s, or just the significant impact that this decade has on our lives. But I think it's arguably the most impactful 10-year span of time we all have. Our 20s are often seen as the years where we transition from a teenager into a full fledged adult. And it's the age where, if you ask, most people would consider a real adult being. And most importantly, the length of time where our brains are finally finished developing. For a lot of us, we spend a large chunk of our times in our 20s, either in the school or in the workplace. But unlike, say, people aged 30 to 40 plus, we on average aren't burdened with the obligations that tie us down. At least not yet. Things such as family, kids, and a mortgage. We have the flexibility to choose the type of future we want, and in addition, unlike our late teens, finally have the emotional maturity to understand the long-term consequences of all of our actions. And it's these two things in particular that makes our 20s so important. In our 20s, we finally get our first clear picture of the world. After years of being sheltered by the often overly protective bubble we have during childhood and the structured environment of school, with countless opportunities, time, and flexibility. We're kind of thrown into the real world now, in the same way that our parents or any other adults are, where we have to really navigate through our careers, relationships, and personal growth mostly on our own. I don't want to talk about anyone's particular circumstances, as everyone's different. Hell, there's a good chance that everything I've said previously might not even apply to you or what you've seen or experienced so far. But I want to make a point that this decade is a crucial one and plays a role, good or not, in shaping the direction of our life, for pretty much anyone. One of the most important parts of our 20s is the opportunity to explore and experiment. We meet new people, go to new places, but nowhere is this more important than our careers. Whether that would be finishing up our education or working in the early stages of our honestly 30 to 40-year-old long career. It's arguably the most important part because a lot of how our life is up until this point leads up to finding a job and being financially stable. We spent the vast majority of our childhood studying and learning in hopes of a career that we can both enjoy and, more realistically, provide us with an income that's often associated with a happy life. The money aside, this stage is really important because for us, it's a, for better or for worse, a leading indicator to the type of career that we'll have throughout the next 30 years, and whether we can continue to pursue and have a meaningful one, or be relegated and stuck somewhere we don't really want to be. Now, that is overly exaggerated, of course, but the truth behind it is very much real. And having to navigate and, more importantly, understand the type of career that we want comes during the experiences that we have throughout our 20s. I feel like it's why we're often asked the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years, and why it's so important? Not because of how relevant it is to the job, but rather, it's asking what type of career do you envision yourself having in the first place? Are you someone that's very career-oriented, or someone that prioritizes work-life balance? There's no one-fit solution and no one answer for everyone. But for a lot of people, and me included, have only been able to answer that question after a few years of working, not when we just started. And I think this ties into another key aspect of our 20s, which is risk tolerance. Without the heavy responsibilities that often come later in life, it's much easier to not only be able to justify the risks that we do, but to also take them, learning from the mistakes that come along the way. Whether it's landing a dream job, trying to start a successful business, or finding a lifelong partner. It's much easier for us to do this while aiming for the stars when we're younger in hopes of making a lifelong change than, say, in our 30s or 40s. And speaking from experience, I had tried to start a business in my 20s making a game development studio. It didn't go how I envisioned to, but to me, because of the time and energy I had, I was able to take that risk, and had it paid out, would have really changed the trajectory of my life. And it doesn't need to be as big or as grand as that. Even some changes in our lives, such as moving or changing jobs, can have a big effect down the line. As we move through our 20s, we start to see the importance of building a strong foundation for the future, and I mean that in as many ways as possible. This decade is the time to develop good habits, set goals, and create plans for achieving them after most people's first taste of independence. We tend to develop some of the first habits we keep throughout our lives and some of the final ones. This isn't to say that we don't go through change later down in life, but from anecdotes, I see habits being much harder to change as life goes on. As the 30s approach, we start to see more and more of our friends starting to settle down. People getting married, starting families, opening a mortgage, and having a more established career. And while this is great, it's just a reminder of how important our 20s are. The experiences and choices we make during this time can have a lasting impact on the rest of our lives. Whether it's pursuing a passion, becoming more mature, building a career, the foundations we lay in our 20s shapes our future. As we navigate our 20s, it's important to remember that it's okay to make mistakes. This is a time for learning and for growth, and mistakes are really a natural part of the process. What's important is that we learn from these experiences and we use them to become better versions of ourselves and to ensure that our life 30 and beyond is as happy as possible. If you ask me, I believe that our 20s are some of the most important decades of our lives. The choices we make, the experiences we have, and the lessons we learn during this time lay the groundwork for all of our future. It's a time for risks, growth, and self-discovery, so it's really crucial that we make the most out of it. And as I reflect on my own journey through my 20s that's almost coming to an end, I want you all to do the same. Whether you're going through the same period right now, need to later in life, or have gone through it already, I want you to think about some of the experiences and how they shaped you, the goals you wanted to achieve, and the person you wanted to become. Because this decade is an opportunity for you to explore, take risks, and build yourself a path to happiness, as cliche as that sounds, so that one day you can look back at this time period and be happy at what you've done with it. So, as always, thanks for watching. Until next time.